see the Pilates.
Blanking on
Jeremy.
Jeremy.
Or Jay, he goes to...
I was gonna say Jay, but I was like, but I know his name.
I met Gerald, I think, once in a while.
Exactly.
When I got certified.
I see them at Rochester.
Do you?
Everybody remembers.
They don't seem
Club, I don't
kind
know.
of
Kathy's
weird.
downstairs walking
They
from
don't seem to
the
talk
senior.
anymore.
I think they're not as best of friends as they used to be. We'll just say it that way.
Because I was like, I was talking to Vince. I was like, I just saw Jeremy over there. I just
Yeah.
saw him, and he was like, okay.
Yeah,
I was
and you
like,
have to keep track of
your buddy, you know?
Yeah. Remember, like, your best friend for 10 years?
Back when I used to see you guys every day, he was your best friend. And did a business with him. He was like, okay.
I once heard that a business partnership is the only ship that doesn't sail. I mean, that's been true for most people that have taken partners that I know personally, including my dad and my brother. I chose never to partner just because it's, I don't know. You give up control, right? You give up, there's a lot behind that. How long's your elbow been bothering you?
I've been playing after Thanksgiving when I got into it for the first time. I was playing 7 days a week. 3
Yeah.
hours. And
Just kind of,
bothered me in January.
yeah.
I never played pickleball before. I played a lot of string, rackets and stuff, badminton, tennis, and squash.
Did you ever play tennis and squash
Yeah.
with that much volume though in a week?
No,
Right.
never. But
Yeah.
it also absorbs, right? Those strings absorb
Different,
a lot.
for
They're
sure.
different. These paddles don't absorb
I don't know. I
anything.
texted
For sure.
the two, they didn't reply, so I don't know. It's up to you. You want to start from them?
We can start a few minutes. We'll chat it up with these guys, and then we'll be good. I'm not going to keep you guys super long time, but I'm hoping I can give you some insightful things that maybe you haven't heard, especially about tennis, or excuse me, pickleball elbow, as we're calling it, not tennis.
So when the ball is heavier and it hits an impact, and then you're hitting long, hard shots,
Yeah.
that started to bother me. I probably didn't have the best battle, but once I got irritated, can't get rid of it.
Yeah. What have you done?
I've tried to ice it.
Mhm.
I do the topological, Voltaren.
Yeah, Voltaren, yep.
Do that a little bit maybe at night, but I don't like to eat the ibuprofen and all that stuff. It does help, but
It does help, but it doesn't fix the problem, does it?
doesn't fix the problem.
Yeah,
You
that's-
feel good the next morning, and then you say, you go play, and it's back again.
So one of the first things we'll talk about tonight is what else? Tennis elbow is the clinical name that people have talked about it forever, but lateral epicondylitis is really the medical term for it. Pickleball elbow in this case. What is it? What is it not? I think when people understand it a little bit more, it makes sense what the solutions are for it and what solutions don't work. There's a lot of misconceptions out there.
And then somebody told me roll a ball on it.
Yeah.
So I done
Feels like
that.
torture.
Huh?
It feels like torture when it happens.
Yeah, you roll the ball right
Yeah.
on this muscle and then back here. I tried that.
For sure. For sure.
It's better. It's not getting worse. It
Yeah.
used to be worse, but
It's so quiet in here now all of a sudden.
You better be interested.
Do you-
Stuck here now.
Yeah. Did she lock the door? Yeah. That's
Probably put a few chains around him.
that's right. That's right. You have to
Yep, she's pushing the chair up against the door.
screech.
That's it.
The arm wrestle to get out. Whoever wins. So there's only 5 of us. It'll be pretty intimate, and that's fine. I do workshops like this kind of all over the place, not just about pickleball elbow, but knee pain, all sorts of different things. So if any of you have specific questions, most of the time when I put on workshops like this, I get half a dozen people, and there's less than that here, but I get half a dozen people that just have a specific question like, hey, this is what happened with my elbow. Do you have any ideas for it? And honestly, I'm happy to talk to each of you individually about that stuff after. So we'll save time for it. If you don't have any problems, great, we can get out of here. But please turn your cell phones off before the presentation begins. I'm kidding. All right. What's that? Did I hear that? Yes, I did. I did hear that.
he's in the wrong workshop.
It's amazing. Yeah, I heard it. Well, do all of you? I'm assuming all of you play quite frequently. Give me a pulse on like how often you guys currently play. 3 what?
Days.
3 days.
Ish.
Okay. All right.
Ish.
About you?
I only play a couple days a month.
A couple days a month.
Yep.
Okay. All right. So you're what's the reason for that compared to a couple days a week?
I'm too busy getting everybody else to play 5 days a week.
Fair enough.
That's my job.
That's your job. Love it.
I
Yeah. What
haven't
about you?
played in over a year. I tore my ankle up.
Oh shoot. Okay. All right.
And so I'm not having it worked on
Yeah.
because he wants to put screws in my heel. I don't think that's a good idea.
Probably not. Yeah.
Probably not.
Okay.
So that's the way it is. I probably won't jump out on that court again.
That's what you're thinking?
You have a magnetic personality.
Oh, I don't, man, I really messed it up, so
All right.
there you go.
Happy to talk to you about that later if you'd like. If you want any insight on it from my perspective, but that's a tough situation.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Well, if I wasn't going on trips and stuff,
Mhm.
then I could go get it fixed, and no matter how long it takes.
Yeah.
But it seems that my cruise director has always got me going somewhere,
Gotcha. Your cruise director?
my wife.
That's your. I had a feeling. Okay.
She's aggressive too.
Oh, she is.
Can't be tamed. She can't be tamed. Is that what you're telling me?
No.
Yeah. Fair enough. What about you? How often do you play? Currently.
Well, I started after Thanksgiving, so December was for the first, and then January I was doing 6 days, 3 hours.
Okay.
And obviously.
Obviously
that was too
ran
much.
into some
And then
problems.
In February it was still 6 days, or 5, and I'm down now to 4 days.
Okay.
But I'm playing with my left hand.
You're down because of the elbow in particular?
Yeah.
Okay.
But I'm playing with my left hand, so I'm getting better with my left.
Yeah.
I can go at front on the front, you know, dinking and all that, play with the right, but any hard shot, especially the backhand on the right,
Yeah.
just there's
Longer drives too? Like
longer-
forehand
all
stuff?
longer
Yeah.
drives and the backhand especially.
Sure.
Lobs, you know.
Yeah.
That thing irritates it. So I wear a brace and all that just to, but I keep it on my left for the long ones.
Sure.
The back. When I go in the front, ambidextrous.
Okay. Fair enough.
That's what's happening now.
What about you, Brendan?
Like 3 or 4 days a week. Usually.
Okay. Solid.
Limit it to like 2.5 hours because once I hit 3 or above, I feel it on my knees.
Everything starts breaking down at that point, huh? Awesome. Okay. Well, awesome. I would say if I were to answer that question, I probably play 5-6 hours a week maybe, but it's only across 2 different days. So I'm, we're going to talk about playing frequency here somewhere towards the end, and just know that I'm subject to the same temptation that every single other human is that loves a sport or that loves doing something. But I am from Rochester. I'm from Ohio, actually, but I live in Rochester. My wife and I do. We've got 4 kids. I should probably start with my name, huh? Did Toki send out an introduction email or anything?
She had the flyers.
Oh, she put something out there already. Okay, awesome. Yeah. Oh, look at that. Perfect. Okay. Oh, I'm like wearing the same shirt too. Perfect.
Pretty accurate, I think you were.
It is pretty accurate. Well, so I'm a physical therapist. I own a practice in Rochester Hills that's a practice that primarily works with athletes. So the predominant amount of physical therapy clinics that are out there are not really specialty clinics. They're more kind of focused on generalized rehab, and they see everyone from those who have had strokes to sprained ankles. We are very much a sports specialty clinic. So we work with a lot of pickleball, we work with a lot of tennis, we work with a lot of triathlon, we work with a lot of strength training athletes. Kind of some interesting niches there. And it's myself, I've got 4 other therapists that work underneath me. And we like doing stuff like this because it's really, while it might not be good for business, I like to think that my job at things like this is trying to teach you how not to hire us in the future for your problems. Because if we can do that, it's a very, very valuable thing. And I think really the main stuff I want to go over tonight is, it's not locked after all. Yeah. How's it going?
Hey there. Hey, Ken.
You have to come sit in the front now since you came in a few minutes late. I'm just kidding. Oh, you have to jump back in. Classic.
Say something important next couple of minutes for Ken.
He's out.
I have no retention.
You're dealing with some tennis elbow right now, aren't you?
I am.
Yeah, awesome. All right, well, so really I want to just try to equip you guys with some new ways to approach this. It's a very, very common thing. I probably see a dozen cases of pickleball elbow myself every month, not just from Toki, but it is just pickleball. I'm almost not seeing tennis anymore, and there's got to be a reason for that, right? So,
Consider that a success. I think that's a success.
yeah, for sure.
Call you when the game is done.
Okay, perfect. Thanks.
Oh, awesome. You like waiting to get into a match right now?
One more.
One more? All right, fair enough. So, pickleball elbow. Who has an understanding of what it is? Go for it. Take a stab.
Well, as far as like what you're feeling, and
Yeah,
stuff,
yeah.
it's, like pain in the, from what I've read, and the outside of your elbow, that's like a shooting pain down your forearm, causes you not to be able to grip very well.
Sure.
Mostly it like works down from what I've read. It's from that part downward, and like tingling in your fingers, I think as well.
Yeah,
Can be a symptom of it, but
sure thing.
yeah, like tendonitis in the elbow.
Essentially tendonitis in the elbow. I would say if we had to broadly title it in some way.
Because then there's a golf.
Exactly right. Yes, exactly right.
I can
Yeah.
describe it.
What's that?
I can describe it.
Yeah, right. Hurts right here.
Well, start, there's a little pain in the elbow, but I think it's also the supination muscle coming down into the hand. So this motion here.
That's exactly right. So the medical term for it is lateral epicondylitis. So if you hold your hand out in front of you, the thumb side of your upper arm bone, which is your humerus, if you follow that down and kind of squeeze the narrowness of your arm there until you feel a couple of bones pop out, the bone on the thumb side of your arm is your lateral epicondyle, okay? And some of you, if you have irritation there right now, that's a hot spot probably, right? So the lateral epicondyle is on our humerus, and that is ultimately, it's an attachment point for many, many, many different tendons. Most of them are actually wrist extensor tendons. So one of the easiest diagnostic tools that orthopedic surgeons even use, it seems kind of lame because it's so basic, but it's quite literally holding your arm out in front of you, cranking up into wrist extension, and resisting that with your other hand. Yes, and so if, like this gentleman, you immediately go like that, that is obviously a positive sign. That's showing that you have tendon irritation. You can get MRIs and stuff on it, but it's a very easy thing to tell that you have just because of the pain location. So you're talking about like kind of a little bit deeper on the backside of the elbow, but realistically, all these wrist motions, all of them pass through this at some point. So this is that's not an uncommon place to feel it at. Yeah, but lateral epicondylitis, the way that tendons get injured is almost predominantly this phrase that we call the terrible twos. So my wife and I have 4 kids, and we've had ages 4, 5, 8, and 13 right now. That's where we stand. And so we've been through the terrible twos, as you guys have heard that phrase before. But the terrible twos that I'm talking about is TOOS. Too much, too soon, too quick, too fast. You can almost insert any word that's appropriate in there, but overdoing it essentially is really the operative word here. Overdoing it, exceeding what a tendon is able to handle, is what causes the tendon to go into some level of breakdown. That is true for every tendon. That's true for Achilles tendonitis, if you guys have ever had problems with that. It's true for hamstrings, for knees, but it's especially true in paddle and racket sports when we're talking about the lateral epicondyle. So the reason that that's important is that I would say probably the most common thing that happens, the most common question I get from new patients about this is, what stretches should I be doing for tennis elbow or for pickleball elbow? And one thing I really need you guys to understand tonight is that it is not a flexibility problem. When we exceed with the stress that we're feeding our arm, when we exceed the capacity or the limit that our tendons have to be able to handle stress, those tendons get weaker and they get frayed, kind of like frayed rope to some degree. And if you guys could imagine stretching a frayed chunk of rope, that's probably not the correct intervention for it. Can you guys picture that a little bit? So if we have an issue that is primarily that the tendons can't handle the stress that we're feeding them, the right intervention for that is building capacity. It's building strength in the tendons that we're using. And this is one of the biggest myths, and I'm doing this for you, by the way. I'm jumping ahead a little bit because I know you're going to hop out. One of the biggest myths is that we can just stretch away tennis elbow and pickleball elbow, and it's absolutely not true. If you've had it before, you might feel like you get a little bit of relief just by stretching the wrist back and forth. Primarily, I would argue, and what a lot of the medical literature would say, is that you're getting relief simply from movement and from blood flow changes from moving your wrist back and forth.
But can you strengthen it?
You absolutely can strengthen it. You absolutely can. And a big piece of what we're going to talk about, the bulk of what we're going to go over, is like actual things you guys can be doing to gain some better strength in those tendons that are broken down. Now, obviously, if there's a tendon injury, there's a pretty vast spectrum that can live on. You can have tendons that are just a little bit frayed, a little irritated on this side of the spectrum. You can have tendons that are really, partially torn and other significant levels of injury to that tendon. You can't ultimately tell that without a little bit of imaging. But to use the frayed rope, just to kind of bring that back to your guys' visual again, stretching so much of the time makes it worse. So I'd really, if I can just impart that on you guys, it's this stretch that I see so many people doing is really not the appropriate way to do it. I'm not saying stretching is bad in general. Stretching is a wonderful thing. It's a great self-treatment. For certain issues like this, though, it's something that we want to stay away from. We want to focus more on strength. Does that make sense? Yeah, what's up?
So I, similarly to what you said, when I
Yeah.
first started feeling pain, I Googled like what's a stretch, what stretches I can do, and I found
Naturally.
this thing real quick, and it's like, okay, that might not be bad, and I picked up my 11-month son, like gave him a toss on
Yes.
the thing, and then sharp pain straight down. I was like, maybe I shouldn't have stretched. Like, I
Maybe
feel
not.
way worse
Yeah,
than
for
I
sure.
did before, but it was just a toss. And
Yeah.
like, oh my God. Like,
Yeah,
Especially when it's active.
yeah,
You don't wanna do it. I've been doing the stretches, you're right.
yeah. I would argue it's human nature to want to stretch something when it hurts, right? It's almost like if you hit your thumb with a hammer, like you can have a reflex a little bit just to shake your hand out. And that's often when we have a soft tissue injury like a tennis, or like a tendon injury. It's pretty normal to want to just stretch it out and put a little bit of stress on it that way. But there's a reason that it doesn't get better right away, and the reason is that most people attack it with the wrong treatments, okay? Any questions about that before we move on? Okay. Is that different information? It sounds like that's a little bit of some different info than what you guys have heard. Maybe not. All right. So one thing I want to just say is I'm not your pickleball coach. I don't pretend to be Toki. I don't pretend to be nearly as good as any of these people that are playing at such a high level. But what I do know really well is human movement. And one of the easiest things that we can make sure is, especially for beginners, that we can make sure that we're doing a better job of is swinging with our body and not just with our arm and our hand. I would say the beginners that I watch a lot of, there's just a lot of just pecking at the ball, and there's a lot of with backhands, there's a lot of just elbow and wrist motions that happen. And if you've taken lessons, I would hope that you've been taught to use your entire body and to actually use your shoulders and actually use your hips. Am I wrong about that? Am I out to lunch there? Have you guys taken lessons? Like what's the general consensus here?
Any moving sport.
Yeah.
If you're taking lessons from somebody that knows what they're doing,
That's
they'll
right.
get your whole body moving in the direction that you want it.
That's exactly
get
right.
The ball or object to move.
That's exactly right, yeah. And so I would say a couple of the primary areas that, just in my experience, we have seen people have a little bit of a bigger need for some help with is getting the shoulders a little bit more involved in swinging and getting the hips a little bit more involved in swinging. So these are two areas that we're going to even go over a couple of exercises that if it's new to you guys, great. I love that. If it's not new to you guys, that's also fine. But we want to make sure that our stroke mechanics are not really all just elbow and below. We have to involve our shoulder blades. We have to involve our hips, and we have to rotate our body essentially while we're interacting with the ball, right? How many of you guys like know your grip pattern really well? Like continental, Eastern, Western, that kind of thing. So? Okay. Gentleman back here. Yes. So have you heard of that? Continental and versus Eastern, Western, like essentially the where you're like the rotation that you're holding the paddle in? Okay. So a couple of things. I mean, we're going to go over some shoulder and some hip exercises that are going to help with some of these things. But I would also encourage you to get with someone like Toki and to try to figure out what type of grip is actually ideal for you. I used to tell people that the continental grip was the ideal grip for reducing stress on the elbow, and that has kind of since been proven wrong. So the continental grip, do you know what I'm talking about? You were shaking your head. Can you show us where you kind of how you grip the ball? Not the ball, excuse me, the racket. Yeah.
Not like here?
Yeah, fair. So.
That should be continental, right?
Well, yeah, exactly. And instead of just like the straight on hammer grip, right?
Usually, because there's a little bezel that goes down here.
The second bezel, yeah.
That's, you align the V of your hand, that's usually.
Exactly.
Versus what, the frying pan?
The frying pan, yeah.
Back here.
Right.
That'd be the Eastern or
I think that's, yeah. Anyone know?
The East or Western is, the other one is all the way over here.
Exactly. So if that's new terminology for any of you, I would say getting with Toki or someone that can help you kind of figure out what is ideal for you is a really, really good idea. I used to tell people the continental grip was like the main strategy. Since then, I feel like it's really more just about figuring out what is ideal for you. A lot of people.
Make a grip ideal for a person.
I would say things like arm length and their just athletic ability. If you have someone who is really, really strong with their forehand drive, their grip pattern is probably going to be a little bit different preferentially than someone else's. If you have someone who's really, really good at dinking and short game, then that's oftentimes not going to be the same grip. That's kind of what I'm talking about there. There's not a one-size-fits-all recommendation for that, for sure. But it's wise for you to kind of get that sorted out and to explore that a little bit, especially if you haven't looked at that. Toki, since you're in here, do you commonly recommend any specific grip pattern for people?
What you talking about, like a continental?
Yeah,
those ones,
correct.
or not having tennis elbow?
Yes.
In my experience, so
Mhm.
it doesn't matter what grip you use.
Yeah.
Is how late you hit the ball is going to actually develop your tennis elbow.
Right.
How?
It's how late
Late.
you hit it. If you're trying to do something different on your shots,
Yeah.
because if you
Fair enough.
you're switching.
He's ready.
Again,
He's ready.
what I missed.
One of the other things is.
Yeah, so technique-wise, obviously it's going to help you a little bit more to have more, how to say, support, not to miss many balls, and you just, instead of improvising, you follow more the technique, can prevent to do that.
For sure.
But it's not restricted, so.
I think
I would say, I play tennis, I still develop tennis elbow, right? So.
one of the things I might have made a mistake early on.
Yeah.
Is that I was also a ping pong player.
You were a ping pong player, yeah.
I was trying to use the grip and not using my shoulder or anything, and just trying to do everything with the arm to try and spin it.
Exactly right.
And that probably.
But,
It's a-
so Bob can also help me on that one. He's with you now, Bob. He's the big old lead at Rochester, so he also knows. He's also a coach. Sometimes the grip when it's too tight tends to also it can go hand to hand with technique. Not necessarily, but it could. But most likely is hitting the leg. On most cases.
Hitting delayed, is that what we said?
Late.
Hitting late, yeah.
Late to the ball.
Yeah, right. Oh, that's good.
Behind the ball when you hit it.
Correct.
Yeah.
Technique-wise, but usually our contact point should be early, right? If you hit it here, so that's why you are compensating. You are not using your only body part.
Right, too.
Shoulder, hips, legs, to support, not just using specifically your arm, your elbow. Same thing with the backhand, right? So you hit it here, you hit back here, then the pain goes a different way. So if the issue is with your forehand, pain goes sometimes here, and it's with the issue with your backhand, sometimes goes here.
That's where it hurts the most.
Exactly right.
I've been told. It's not that I know.
Yeah, you never experienced it, huh?
Timing is too damn good that you don't know. You don't ever hit the ball late. She rockets the ball.
I've yet to see you play. I need to get there for one.
Seriously?
Yeah,
Oh.
yeah. It's a sight to behold, huh?
So I will try what he fix me. He fix my tennis elbow, then I won a gold medal. So I will.
Might have something to do with it.
Wow.
Well, I think the reality and the reason I brought up grip at all is like it used to be a conversation I had with people. I think now it's just much more, like you said, the grip doesn't matter specifically. It has a lot more to do with how you're swinging and how you're using the rest of your body. And certainly that makes a lot of sense too about the grip tension. I've always been heard, or I've always been told, and you can back me up or refute this too, but to try to recommend like a 4 out of 10 grip. Now, 4 out of 10 meaning if 10 is maximum grip and 0 is, the paddle is loose in your hand, trying to get to a 4, not a 7, not an 8, not a 2, but to ensure that you're not just over gripping. And a lot of people that play pickleball experience pickleball elbow at some point, so you're going to get experience with this. Hopefully not in an exaggerated way. Welcome, by the way.
Thank you. I'm
Yeah.
just trying to stop sweating.
Yeah.
But the grip actually totally got me at first because I would death grip that thing from the time we started
Yeah.
for 2 hours. Like I wouldn't relax in between.
I'm guilty of that too. I'm guilty of that too, for
I'm
sure.
like, why is my elbow doing this? So now
Yeah.
I make sure I change hands once in a while. I just
For
loosen
sure.
it up.
I'm
and it
not
helps.
surprised maybe when you walk in the morning.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's right. You gotta watch out. My wife is, yeah.
Gotta protect yourself sometimes. So
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
she's here a lot, so her reactions are much faster. Toki, which is a problem.
Exactly.
Well, we're going to go over a couple things, a couple of strength movements here then. I'd like to get into that right away. I brought a couple of things. I brought some bands. I brought a couple of dumbbells, mostly just because I want to demonstrate this with you guys, have you guys try it out as well. We're going to start with some relatively basic ones, but again, I think it's a lot of times a novel thing, and you kind of miss this piece, but it's a novel thing to understand that flexibility is not really the thing that we need to be aiming at. It's capacity and strength of the tissue that's injured. And so the main intervention that targets building capacity and strength in tissue is strength training. So I'd like to get into this right away. How many of you guys do any strength training for forearms? Yeah.
Oh, we were talking 5 push-ups?
Yeah.
My elbow.
That's what she said.
What do you have to do with one arm?
Yeah, single arm push-ups.
We were just talking about.
Sorry about my tardiness.
That's all right. That's all right.
Please excuse
We're getting right into the exercises, so it's gonna be good for
me.
you.
We're all going to appreciate your donation of the dark chocolate. Yeah.
Dark chocolate. That sounds good. So you do some exercises for your grip. So walk me through that. What are you up to?
I do, pull-ups, pull-downs, lats, on the back
Mhm.
ones. And I also was doing for the longest time Philip golf, the dumbbell like this. But I found that with an active thing that made it worse. So
Yeah.
I laid off of that.
Okay. Yeah.
Sort of dumbbell like this or like this.
Fair enough. And those last two ones that you said are really more up the alley of what I was considering. Yeah. It's good.
Somebody told me these ones too.
Yeah, moving up and down there. Okay. Yeah. Anyone else doing any other grip specific exercise? Yeah. What do you do? Pilates. For sure. Do you feel like that really helps? That really helps to strengthen forearms for you? Good. I would say, and this is just, it's a universal concept here that stronger arms and stronger grips are going to be helpful in bulletproofing you against future injury. I understand that several of you have some active stuff going on right now as well. That doesn't mean we can't do some of these strength movements though. I want to try some of them, kind of walk you through it, and then we'll go from there. You guys obviously all have access to Lifetime, so there's no excuse to not go upstairs and do some dumbbell and banded stuff, but
No excuse.
no excuse. There's no excuse.
I've been told there's a second floor.
You've been told
You can't find those bands all the time.
you can't find those bands all the time, but they're about $7 on Amazon,
Yeah.
so you could order them.
You didn't say good excuse.
That's true. That's true. So I'm gonna walk you guys through this. I'm gonna demonstrate it in front of you. This is really, really basic stuff, but I do find that there's a lot of nuance even in wrist exercises. So let's go over this from the get-go. First and foremost, we are talking about isolation movements. So we're not talking about pull-ups and pull-downs, and like I love those. I do a lot of that myself too. But if we're really trying to improve the capacity of some of these tendons and where they anchor, because the majority of these tendons are wrist extensor, meaning fingers going up towards the ceiling, yeah, you're wincing even just doing that, that's really what we need to zoom in on, all right? So I have a 5-pound dumbbell here. So much of this sport is about quickness, so much is about finesse. There's a lot of speed, though, involved in, especially, I'm sure, some of the higher level players that I watch. I mean, there's a crazy amount of impact that we experience. It's a really, really good thing to just take a moment, and when we're doing strengthening exercises for these muscles, to really slow it down into an almost uncomfortable pace. And what I mean is, I'm talking about a 5-second up or concentric contraction, which would be, I'm going to support my entire forearm on my leg here. You could use a table, you could use a bench, you could use just about anything. But a 5-second contraction is very, very slow and usually not how most of us move, especially in the gym, especially doing curls, triceps things. Like we're not moving that slow. I would ask you to hold it at the top for 5 seconds as well, and then to slowly move 5 seconds all the way into the down. It's a very different way of strengthening these muscles, but one thing we know about tendons in particular is that speed of the contraction is one easy little hack to make sure that we're not irritating as much. So if I were to go quick up like that, in a similar way, if I were to really like peck at a backhand shot, that's an easy way to just irritate that whole system. So we want to really, really be slow, even with a little bit of load. 5 seconds to get up, 5 seconds to hold at the top, and 5 seconds to lower it all the way down. Slow tempo movement like this is really, really healthy for tendons. It really helps the blood flow of the area too, and that is, if we know anything, it's that tendons really love slow tempo and they really love blood flow as far as their healing potential goes. Who wants to try this? Brendan does. 5 pounds with enough repetition, Brendan especially, is not necessarily as small of a weight as it sounds like. It can be relatively difficult. You want to try this?
I'll try my left.
Yeah, fair enough. I would say somewhere in the realm of 12 to 15 reps. We're looking to really fatigue the area, but we're not looking to have to go to failure or anything crazy. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, so the one who are, especially Rohit, like he's in pain on the right hand.
Yes.
Now, because we're addicted to pickleball, we all are. Everyone in this room is. So we don't want to stop playing. So he started playing with the left hand.
I've heard this.
So there's a red flag too, also, because.
She's calling you out, man. Yeah.
Yeah. I would say why? Because we don't use because I think where you were 3 years ago, 2.5 years ago, so I started doing it. But I needed my left hand to work, it's different. But since you are not used to use your left hand, right? So just be careful. I would say get the strength in your left hand before you start playing with the left hand, because then you're gonna have both.
That's bad.
Right? So
And I would add to that, like a lot of these, you could even look at prevention. There's a prevention angle to this if you don't have a problem at the moment. You can't go wrong getting strong in your elbows. That's just always how it's going to be in pickleball. The stronger you are, the more likely you are to be healthy and to avoid injury. So if the left side's not bothering you, go after it anyways, right?
yeah. Or
Absolutely.
even you only have on the right hand.
Yeah.
Right? Even like take a little break from here and do the other one, because you may use it, or you can learn your 2 hands back into it.
Yeah, there you go.
So would you do this 3-4 times a week? Would you avoid the days you play pickleball?
Exactly right. I would do it on alternating days throughout the week. You did.
Stars?
I'll give you a high five afterwards, maybe, right? That's if you don't leave and go off to another game, though,
It
right?
evens out, you're
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, that's true.
You still owe us 25 push-ups. Yeah. No, it's that 3 times a week is really the ideal dose. Doing it daily tends to just piss it off. That's just sometimes people think more is better, and we used this phrase earlier, the terrible twos. You can overdo it with strength training just like any other thing can. So we want to make sure that we're managing the load and the dosage of something like this. I use the word dosage intentionally too. Like medicine, movement is the medicine that I'm able to help people with. And you want to make sure that the dose is right and that people aren't underdoing it. Because if you underdose something like strength training, they don't get the right effect. There's not enough strength that comes out the other side. If you overdose strength training, then you can really cause some irritation. We don't want that either. I know what she's looking at. What are you thinking, Brendan?
I was definitely feeling on this side. I'm doing this.
For sure.
On my left side.
For sure.
Keep it balanced.
Yeah.
Doesn't seem like it.
And that motion helps with the inside.
That was
right?
extended as doctor.
No,
Or
so
that's really the
yeah,
outside.
yeah, lateral.
First, I thought you were gonna have an
Piece on the
intervention,
outside.
let people come in to stop him from playing with his left
No,
hand.
you don't have to stop it, but it's just, if you never use it, right?
Do it right.
Like
yeah,
you're being nice. You're saying he's setting himself up for future problems to some degree
Because
by
that's
not
what
doing
she
something.
Oops.
Oops. Oh, man. So wrist extension, very, very basic movement. And I heard you say like that doesn't look like it would be very tough, right? The slow tempo, even body weight movement sometimes, if you move slow enough, can be absolutely very, very tough. So I would encourage you guys, like if you're gonna take this movement away from today, great, I'm happy with that, but make sure that you're going light first, even if it doesn't exceed your expectations of how hard it is. You want to start light and gradually bump it up from there.
Doing it way faster.
Yeah,
And I was doing 15 pounds.
right.
15 pounds.
And so, what the benefit of that, like, and how are you supporting your forearm? Like, you probably weren't getting a whole lot out of that, other than, yeah. As soon as you held it, that changed. Your mind changed. Yeah.
It's
Wrist extension, yeah. Palm down, slow and controlled, holding it at the top as well, and really slow tempo on the way down. Yeah.
It doesn't hurt.
Right. So is that the elbow that was hurting?
It hurts. I mean, it just barely sometimes hurts.
Okay.
Feel the
Yeah.
difference? Yeah.
But I don't want it to hurt.
You don't want it to hurt you. No, you don't. Yeah. These exercises should not be something that cause an extreme amount of pain by any means. All right. Can I have that one here?
Oh, do you need
So
this back?
nope. You use that. You can use that for now. So I saw. I'm not sure if it was the other gentleman who was in here earlier. Someone was talking about this motion right here. Was that you? Yeah. While that motion is definitely a motion that that the wrist does, the actual epicondyle on the outside of your elbow is not as involved in that particular muscle motion. It is very, very involved in what we call supination and pronation of the forearm. So the motion I want you to think of is turning a doorknob, right? This motion right here, and really both sides of it, both sides of supination and pronation are subject to tension changes on that lateral epicondyle. So this is another motion that I think all of my new patients with pickleball elbow, it makes it into the priority list on day one to make sure that we're doing some version of loaded supination and pronation. And what I would ask is that, again, when you guys are doing this, you are supporting your forearm on your leg, and that we're not doing it out in open space, because this starts to challenge other muscles. We want to absolutely hold it here. You certainly could use a dumbbell. The interesting thing about this motion, though, and this is perhaps one of the reasons that different maneuvering with a paddle irritates these tendons to begin with, but the leverage that happens when you hold something here that has weight above it, you can play with that a lot, right? So if I hold the dumbbell in the middle here, and I'm going to hold you to the same standards. It's a 5-second stretch all the way to the outside, holding it there, 5 seconds to turn your palm all the way to the ground, like what I'm doing there. And with 3 pounds held in the middle, I'll be honest, that doesn't feel really like anything. Grabbing right at the bottom of the dumbbell immediately changes that in a multiple probably of 2 or 3, I would say. The bigger the weight, the longer the weight, the more creative you can get with this, the better. What I often recommend to people is actually to use a 5-pound sledgehammer if you have one at home. Seems like a bizarre recommendation, but a 5-pound sledge is...
What about like a PVC pipe?
A PVC pipe, yeah, even the lightness of a PVC pipe, just the length of it, if it weighs, 16, 18 ounces, something like that, that can be really, really powerful. Broomsticks work just fine. A metal pole, I mean, you guys can get very creative with this, but the purpose, to your point there, is to try to grab towards the bottom of whatever that object is, so that it is quite stressful to open all the way up and close all the way down. I doubt, what does it feel like with 5?
It feels fine. I can feel it just like the tiniest little bit.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
going slow is fine.
Right.
It doesn't really hurt, but I can, I can tell it's hitting that,
You feel it in the area. You feel it in the area, but it's not extremely difficult, right?
No.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
So, yeah.
Feels like I should be doing that.
Pass it around. You want to try that?
Sure.
Might as well. 3 pounds might not feel a whole lot, but that's certainly something to go for.
Yeah, that one gets right where I feel it sometimes. Yeah.
Yep.
And it makes a big, I didn't feel it at all when I'm holding it in the middle.
Yeah, the leverage on it makes a really, really big difference when you hold it at the bottom. I'm just waiting for someone to invent a product that clips onto the end of a paddle for this particular exercise.
For sure, right?
Yeah, so if anyone is a patent attorney in this room, let me know.
That's
We'll
your
talk about it
idea.
afterwards.
Get it manufactured right now.
That's right.
Clip the weight to the end of the paddle and just use the paddle itself.
That would be amazing to do that. Absolutely right. Clipping a weight or a cuff weight that has some Velcro on it. I mean, there's when I say get creative, it's absolutely okay. We're looking for fatigue within 10, 12, 15 reps, somewhere in that range. We're looking for fatigue, and we're not looking for irritation. So you're going to have to kind of play around with what's the right weight, what's the right implement for that, whether it's a PVC pipe, a broomstick, or a dumbbell, or a kettlebell, or something else upstairs.
So you said for the wrist,
Yes.
what was it called?
Wrist extensions,
Wrist
yeah.
extensions, so do 12 reps, 10 to 12 reps, but
Yeah.
how many times?
I would do 2, maybe 3 sets of all this stuff.
Three
Yeah.
sets, okay.
Yeah. And that won't take very long. Like if I'm kind of pitching to you some self-rehab realistically here. And that's, it's not meant to be a full workout. It's meant to be just kind of a hyper-concentrated thing towards where the irritation is. Yeah. Very low incidence of injury with these types of things because you can always just back off of it, right? You can always on the supination, pronation drill, you can always just grab a little higher up on the lever. With the extension with the wrist, you can always grab a 3-pound weight instead of a 5-pound weight. And I expect you guys to not just, not push, not just grind through the intense pain the whole time. That's not the purpose of this stuff, for sure. Cool.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's a paddle cover that has weight to it.
A paddle cover?
It has weight to it.
I like that idea, for sure.
So you're just strengthening the tendons?
Yeah.
Is that the point of it?
Yeah, so
Or is it making them more flexible?
let me just rewind for you.
I'm so
No,
sorry.
totally fine, totally fine. One of the biggest, this is just an important piece of this, is that one of the biggest misconceptions about just tendonitis in that particular spot is that you can stretch it away. It's not a flexibility problem. In fact, if it were a flexibility problem, people would not struggle with it for months and months and months on end, like many, many people do. It's a capacity problem. It's the ability for that tendon to be able to handle stress. When the tendon breaks down, the last thing you want to do is spend a bunch of time stretching it. You need to be doing things that engorge it with fresh blood flow and that help to actually rebuild some of the fraying that happens with this process. I mean, we've got very large-scale studies, imaging studies that look at what this looks like. And when I say a frayed piece of rope, I mean, that's a very accurate description of what these tendons look like.
Is it like a torn meniscus where it doesn't get the blood flow and it doesn't?
So that's a great question. So a meniscus doesn't get blood flow because a big portion of the meniscus does not have blood vessels that really attach to it. There is a ton of blood vessels that attaches in this entire area, but this is also different tissue. You're talking about cartilage in the knee. When we're talking about a tendon, one of the main things that happens when we have pain, and if any of you have injured another area of your body, maybe like a sprained ankle, or if you've broken a bone, or you've injured another tendon, you've experienced this in a different way. A very common thing that happens is your body kind of shuts down that area. So it gets really weak all of a sudden, like overnight almost, it seems like it gets weaker. The blood flow, you get tingling and you get sensation changes in the area. It's almost as if the blood flow gets redirected away from that area. And that's in fact what the literature tells us, is that Your body, knowing that there's an injury there, starts to reroute things around the area rather than supplying new circulation to the area, which is another reason why like strength exercise, even lower level stuff like this, kind of hits the reset button. It helps to reboot your body's own stimulus to the area. A lot of the newest medical techniques out there, PRP, stem cell treatment, if you guys have heard of some of these new therapies, they're biologic, they're injectables done by physicians. The majority of that harnesses your own body's ability to revamp circulation to an area and to actually heal itself. So you can do the same thing at a lower level with strength training, which is a very, very interesting concept. I'm not saying that strength training is the same as PRP and stem cell therapy, but it's most people don't start there, and if I can get you guys kind of moving in that direction, as opposed to just always, cranking on it like that, it's very much a pivot that everyone should be making with this type of injury. Does that make sense?
Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. All right, questions about those exercises so far? No big deal. For sure, there are many devices out there like Amazon, eBay. I don't know if anyone uses eBay anymore. There's a lot of devices out there that are like, they're marketed for tennis elbow or for tendonitis in the elbow. I would just say, while many of those are good, it's really important just to start with the basics. And I really, really like slow dumbbell and slow supination pronation as kind of those two basic movements. Really, really important. I think if you do them, you will see improvement already. I think even with the current injury that you have right there as you're kind of holding it to your side there. Yeah.
I played today.
That's fair. I think even with something like that, if you found the right weight, you might see an actual change in pain if you just kind of wake the area up a little bit. We'll talk more about it afterwards. I'll look at it for you, but that's it's something that I see that happens all the time. So, how many of you guys warm up for pickleball? Right on. All right.
Warm up?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not stretching, it's not necessarily lifting weights, it's moving around, skipping down the road.
Yeah.
Just like that.
Absolutely.
Just getting all your stuff waking up.
Just waking all of it up. Exactly right.
Getting the blood.
Hey, welcome back.
At least I won it.
Are we all done?
Just gonna ask.
Getting the blood going.
And you won. That's amazing.
Nice.
Getting the blood going.
Getting the
Yeah.
blood
Yeah.
going.
Is it common practice for all of you? So that's two of you I saw. Maybe I missed a
I
couple.
warm up a little bit, but I never do anything that would warm up like my elbow.
Fair.
Or,
Okay. Fair.
Yeah,
So
I do overall like 20 minutes, 30 minutes before I come down.
okay.
So it's everything though, not just stretching.
Sure. Okay. All right.
I do not
Yeah.
warm up.
The vast majority of the people that I play with don't seem to warm up at all.
Well,
Yeah.
you dink back and forth.
Sure.
Is that?
Some sport-specific warm-up, but
Yeah.
but I guess what I mean is more like an actual dynamic warm-up, as if you're an athlete, right? I think this is an interesting thing.
As if you're
I know. So here's yeah, exactly. I guess I feel strongly about this just because of the realm that I'm in. I see injuries in this sport and so many others just all day long. A lot of people look at pickleball the same way that they look at golf. It's as like a leisure sport of some sort. And I just couldn't disagree any more than that. I feel the same way about golf, if I'm honest with you. A lot of people just walk into golf without warming up their bodies, and lo and behold, as time goes on, big problems creep up on them. And both golf and pickleball are ultimately high velocity, direction change, rotational in nature. There's impact on the ball. Like these are sports, and I've done this talk a number of times, and I see a lot of people just chuckle about that, like, oh, it's not actually a sport, right? We're not athletes. I just totally disagree. Everyone in this room is an athlete, and I would contend that everyone in this room should be treating their bodies a little bit like an athlete before they do athletic things. And it doesn't have to be some crazy 15, 20-minute warm-up. I'm going to give you guys what I would recommend, including some things about what we talked about earlier about getting shoulders a little bit more involved, getting hips a little bit more involved. We're going to go over this. I am recording this tonight too, so I'll make sure you guys all get a YouTube video of this. You don't have to remember every little detail. Yeah, you've been writing this down the whole time, haven't you?
No, I wouldn't have been such an ass. If I
Oh,
had
yeah.
recorded.
You weren't on camera. It's okay. It's okay. But I think that a little bit of intentional focus on not just the forearms, but certainly also on the rest of our body that contributes to the swing. If you've not done this, it feels significantly different when you enter that court, when you have actually primed your body to do this stuff. So I'd like to kind of move into this next, and I think what I'd like to do, if you guys are okay with this, is I'd like to actually have you all stand up, because like we can do this together, okay? I'm going to give you a, excuse me,
You're not a sit-down kind of girl, huh?
I'll take a yellow one.
yellow one for you. I'm not sure if I have,
If I'd known, I would have brought one.
yeah, for you.
I can run upstairs and see if they have a few.
I don't think
Give you the
this
red
size.
one.
That's fine.
You don't think what now?
I don't think they have this size up there.
So this is a brand, Draper Strength. I buy these things on Amazon by the dozen. They're very inexpensive and they last forever. So it's kind of classified as a strength band. We'll get everyone a little bit of a turn here. But so you guys, a couple of things. When I'm looking at a warm up, I'm looking at not specifically just dinking. We're not looking just at doing stuff with our paddles. We're looking at actually getting these muscles on. So you can put the band down for now, but I would love for all of you guys to just think about doing wrist circles with me for now. And I know that seems silly, but if you were about to go on a jog, you'd probably want to warm up your ankles and your knees. I would say 20 wrist circles, and what I would really ask is that you actually close your fist. Closing your fist just adds a little bit more tension into that whole area. I would say maybe go 20 clockwise, 20 counterclockwise. Brendan's going to sleep over here. Yeah. Any pain with that? Not too big of a deal, right? What's up?
I said, was I supposed to count?
Yeah, I don't know. Lots of crunching and clicking. Yeah. All right. Do all of you have a paddle with you or no? Okay. All right. So what's interesting is how do your forearms feel just after doing that right now? Like a little bit warm?
Yeah.
Yeah. Warm-ups don't have to be like really, really exhausting. That's the entire purpose of it, is just to deliver some fresh blood flow to that area. And I just don't see anyone actually doing that with their wrists. So that's a good way to start. So next thing that I would ask you guys to do is quite literally, arms out in front of you, open palms as far up towards the ceiling as you can, turn them down as far as you can. Same exact thing, guys. We're going to try to explore slowly all parts of that motion. Yep. And we are getting our shoulder and our forearm. So this is a little bit of supination and pronation, but it's also using some internal, external rotation in our shoulder. You said you could feel that a little bit? Yeah. A little bit of pain? Yeah. Yep. As you rotate out that way? Yep. Okay. So again, I would keep that to about 20. I would keep everything that we do to about 20 reps, by the way. Those of you who have a band, and we can switch off with this, maybe we can do about 10 of them each. What I want you to do is I want you to do some banded pull-aparts. Yeah, so a pull-apart, guys, elbows should be locked. We are intentionally not going to, you know what, can I borrow that band real quick? We're intentionally not going to use our elbows for this one. We use our elbows for a lot. I want you to forcefully straighten the elbows. The whole goal is, can you expand your wingspan? Like how far away can you get your fists away from your body, and then slowly bringing it back. A lot of people will want to bend the elbows, and I want you guys to forcefully lock your elbows. What is really good for this is to get 10 of them with palms facing down, and I would immediately then switch to palms facing up, and I would do 10 more in that motion. There you go. Yep.
Now, would you care how close they are?
So the hands being closer together, it's like choking up on a bat to some degree. It's just going to be harder, right? So I would make it as hard as you can handle for 20 reps here, for sure. Yep.
From slow, like the wrist,
So slow like the wrist thing, but it doesn't need to be 5 seconds slow. This is really, the wrist, the movements we went over there are a little bit more like self-rehab.
Yeah,
This is a bit more like, hey, we're warming up. If you want to go through them a little bit faster, great. The main emphasis here, though, guys, is, can you lock the elbows and use your shoulders for this and not your elbows? And at that very peak point when your arms are out there, can you squeeze shoulder blades together, almost like you're pinching a pen between your shoulder blades back there? If you can exaggerate that to a big degree, that's very, very helpful for this. Yep.
He's trying to punch you.
I know your wife, that's deadly, so.
He knows.
So I would get again a set of them with palms down, a set of them with palms up, and that's a great way to get that active. Questions about that so far? All right.
I keep a red band in my bag, but I've never.
Nice.
For that reason, I keep it in my bag. I've never used it.
Just haven't used it. Yeah. Well, you're prepared, man. You're prepared.
What are these bands called again?
Maybe we can
It's
do
called a
it.
strength band.
Yeah, in Amazon, what's the brand?
Draper Strength.
Draper?
Yeah,
Strength?
yeah. If you'd like, I plan on sending you guys all an email, so I can for sure send out some links to that if you'd like, so you get the same exact band. Yeah.
Perfect.
I feel like I'm at home with this. I do this every day.
Every single day?
Pull your arms
Good.
more.
Awesome.
These are my rest days, my only rest days.
All right, guys. The next thing, can I borrow this? Next thing with the band here is actually rotating our shoulders as well, okay? So what we're going to do now is palms are going to be up. Elbows are going to be kind of squeezed right next to our rib cage. And what you want to do here is you want to pull your hands away from each other, keeping your elbows where they're at though. So again, there should be a big emphasis here of squeezing shoulder blades together. It's not just slouch forward and kind of moving. You're trying to get your chest as tall as you can. That is called external rotation there. Try it.
Bob loves these.
Oh, yeah, Bob's really big on this.
Should talk to his trainer.
I'm gonna forget all these. You know, right?
Nah, we videotaped it. Don't worry, you'll be all right.
Could you do one at a time?
That looks pretty tough, Bob. That looks
Could
pretty
you do
tough.
one at a time?
100%, 100%. Like one, like little TikToks like that, back and
Or
forth
like
for
if
sure.
you're like attaching the rope to like something upstairs and just
100%, yeah,
having it here.
for sure. There's a whole lot of, we get into some of the performance stuff with adding velocity to your arm, doing that at 90-90. There's all sorts of different angles you can add to that for sure.
When I like dislocated my shoulder, like a lot of
Yeah.
just has just a single side,
Just
here,
really honing in on external
here,
rotation.
Here,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
This is all single side.
yeah, for sure.
That's all single side, I do single side.
And that's a really, really good thing. I would say rotator cuff health, shoulder strength in general, being able to squeeze shoulder back, being able to externally rotate. These are really, really crucial things for not passing as much stress down to your elbow when you're making contact with the ball. And that might seem like a small thing, but it's really underemphasized by the majority of people that I know.
He used both straps.
Just call her a sissy?
That would be nice.
Yeah. All right, so the next piece is another shoulder movement. You guys can put the bands down unless you didn't get a chance to try it. Who here has done something called a wall angel? I'm going to guess you. Yeah. Anyone heard of wall angels? Would you like to demonstrate them? Yeah. Why don't you come over to here?
We've done it, but we don't know the name.
Classic excuse, Toki.
Like facing the
We
wall.
call it
No.
different.
Facing away from
Back against the wall. Yeah. So you guys, a good wall angel is essentially, it should look a little bit like a snow angel back in the day when you were kids and you were flopping around in the snow. In a perfect world, I would actually ask you to come away from the wall with your feet. Yep, almost to do a little partial wall sit. Just kind of sit your butt down a little bit into that. And then your goal is backs of the hands against the wall and to keep them against the wall as high as you possibly can and then back down.
Yeah, that's what we call it, the crack.
Crack, crack, crack.
Yeah, that's what I call it.
That's why you didn't know the name. That's
Yeah.
right. That's right.
Do it all the time.
If you guys haven't tried this before, these ladies are making it look pretty easy, and I don't see any guys up there. That's right. That's right. You just worried about your arm span, your wingspan there? Yeah. The goal is to not lose contact with the backs of any point of your arms all the way up.
Does your back have to touch the wall?
You want to try to keep your back against the wall, flush the whole time. Yep. Excellent. Look at that.
You can't feel it.
You're so
I did it.
I didn't see you do it.
go do it again.
Now, but
Get
I
back
did it
there.
for my training for my elbow.
does it all the time. Calls a crack crack.
So there's for most people, if you guys can kind of look at,
I put it, yeah, second floor is a different thing.
use you as a model here. For most people, most guys especially, most people that have a lot of stiffness in their middle back, there's a little quadrant, usually above 90 degrees, where it gets really, really hard to maintain contact on the wall. So
My whole back's supposed to
your whole back should be touching the wall here.
Yeah, that's the tricky part, yeah.
If you arch away from the
My hand,
wall,
but I could feel it, like right about here, it gets hard. Like,
Yeah.
Kind of.
We could all come over and push you against the wall.
So that's because of tightness in your like mid back.
it's mid back. Yeah, it's just postural stiffness. Lots of all that.
Right? It's slow. And it's slow.
Slow and controlled. Yep, all the way to. If you can get your hands a touch, awesome. With yeah,
Probably just good for posture too, huh? Like,
very, very good for posture as
right
well.
here, it's real
That's
tight. I
the
gotta,
quadrant
like,
I'm talking
push
about.
through.
Yeah,
Oh.
yeah. That overhead motion though should be oddly familiar, right? So that a lot of stuff happens up here, and if we don't have access to the rear side of our shoulder, which is kind of what this is targeting, a lot of people just end up, using mostly wrist and elbow, and it's not what we want. Yeah, yeah. You guys did. You feel tingling too. Well, we'll talk after class about that. I don't know. Yeah. All right. So another thing here is rotating our torso, right? So seems somewhat basic. Everyone obviously in this room has the ability to rotate somehow here. What I would say though is that our ability for our rib cage and again our middle back, you're talking kind of about posture, that feels like a postural stretch right there. Our middle back and our rib cage though are really, really important in being able to rotate. And once again, if we don't have the ability to rotate through our rib cage, a lot of times then our motion stops, our follow through kind of discontinues itself, and lo and behold, you use your elbow a lot more than what we're kind of meant to. So again, backing out of this again, we are doing this as a part of a warm-up. And again, you guys are, this 5-6 minutes maybe is what this will take you if you guys actually take this seriously. So this is not it's not like a really long thing. I'm just kind of spending time explaining it. But the rotations here are really, really important. So what I'd like you guys to try is I want you guys all to get your hands behind your back. I want you to try, if you can, to keep your feet right underneath your hips. Yep, don't let them be real wide. And what I'm looking for here is I want you to rotate as far as you can one direction. Okay? Why don't you guys watch me do this first? That's a better idea. I want you to rotate as far as you can in one direction. All of us are going to run into a barrier. It's going to look differently in each of us for sure, but we're all going to bump into a barrier there. And at that barrier, I want you to tip down towards the side you're rotating into. So I'm rotating to my right. I bumped into that barrier. I'm going to tip down towards the right, back up, and lo and behold, what for most of us will happen is that will completely unlock a new level of rotation. So now I can twist there. I will now bend down to the side, and I get a little bit more out of that. A few reps of that to each side, and that's not a parlor trick. I want you all to try that. It's a very interesting way of stretching some of the joints in your middle back. Try some of that out. Nice and slow and controlled. When you tip down, it should be kind of like a little teapot, like that little dance back in the day. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely does work.
You know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I kind of do.
Yeah, I can see that.
So 3 of those to each side, I feel like does wonders at just loosening up the middle back. And for me, I'm certainly not the tallest one in this room, but man, oh man, that's an area for me that ends up hurting a lot at the end of pickleball, is just because I feel like I spend so much time rounded forward. So having a way to open this up is really, really helpful. Did anyone kind of get stuck on that or feel like it was not right? Everyone looked like they got
You want us to go as far as you can go?
right. Yep. Yep.
First time out?
First time out, as far as you can go,
Okay.
then the
I can
bend.
feel that for sure. I mean,
Can I modify that for you a little bit?
Sure.
Can you try that again? All right, so when you do the bending should happen in this plane. You were kind of folding forward. Yeah.
I have a little back issue going on.
Do you have a low back issue?
Yeah.
So did that like light it up like?
Yeah.
Yeah, so.
In a heartbeat.
Yeah, fair enough, fair enough.
Now you really have them, huh?
Yeah.
Can you check this? This is right.
Show me, yeah. That's exactly right. Yeah. When I do this, like the speed that I do this at is a little bit faster, again, because this is part of a warm-up, but I'm bumping into there. I bend down kind of slowly. Back up. I just try to get a few of those stretched out. I go to the other side, and that one's done in 30 or 40 seconds or less. Yeah. Fair?
Yeah.
Okay.
That would work for golf too.
Absolutely. Absolutely right. Yes. This is a very important golf exercise right there. That's right. That's right. Okay. Who here does lunges as an exercise? A few of you? Yep. So I really, I would say, I'm not trying to make you guys have like achy knees going into a pickleball match by any means, but a lateral lunge, man, oh man, so much happens down in this world, especially near the net. So I really like a movement that we call the Cossack squat, which is a very, very. You guys have an inside joke at all times, don't you?
She's my trainer.
She's your trainer. Huh? Fair enough.
So-
Have you like told him all this stuff?
I just make him work hard.
I love it. I love it. So a Cossack squat is intended to be a very, very wide stance. And your goal is to try to sit essentially as if there was a chair behind your right heel. You're going to try to sit down like your butt into that area. Just to one side. My goodness, yeah.
just look bad over there.
Yeah, that's right. She really is. I want you to sit there, stand all the way up, and then go.
You do this when they're under 25.
Yeah.
It wasn't clear on that.
And now I want you to go into the other side.
Now, teacher,
No
over there.
bending, no bending the stretch.
No bending the opposite leg. You're absolutely right. Yeah. So it's like you're sitting into a chair on one side. I'll get out of your way.
This is for your hips?
This is for your hips.
I have sore hips.
Yeah.
Like really sore hips.
Well,
So this will cure me.
maybe a good idea to work on them then a little bit. Yeah, for sure.
I get the same though, right? Because you play, you work out, and then I go to work and sit for 10 hours.
Very much so.
You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
for sure.
Yeah,
There you go.
it's tight.
That's
Yeah. So like,
By all means, if balance is a concern, like use a chair, right? We can use a little bit of assistance there. The purpose, though, again, in a warm-up is to get some blood flow into your hips. It's to kind of get the muscles around your hip joint activated and turn on, and to stretch out even some of the groin. The straight leg, the leg that's straight is often getting stretched quite a bit there, and that's a really
I
good.
feel like that's why I don't go very far. I feel like it's
Like your right leg is
as
holding you
far as
back.
can go,
Yeah, for sure. So that is a little primer in what I would recommend for a warm up, and like that would be the end of it there. By the way, so
can do that?
everybody can do that. It's a very accessible thing. I think a lot of it is very, very focused on really upper body, getting shoulder blades active, both with the rotations that we did, the pull aparts that we did, a little bit of a warm up with the wrist there. I'm just trying to get you guys again to be really intentional about this and not accidental with how we approach going to play a game. We want pickleball to be something that we can play for the lifespan, not to have to be sidelined by these things over and over and over again. And so I just think it certainly takes a little bit of work. Questions about the warm-up at all? Okay. I have videos of all this stuff, so you guys aren't just going to go. If you wouldn't mind, is everyone's email on that?
Have access to it.
Okay. If you guys,
Send me the video, I forward
fair
the
enough.
video. Because
Okay.
I cannot share their information.
You cannot share their information. If I ask them to share their information, can they?
Then, yeah.
Okay.
Try their own.
Okay,
we
yeah.
can
I would love to, you guys could potentially even just write it back there, just so I can get that more directly to you guys. And if you have future questions by any means, like, you feel free to connect with me on that. You don't have to do it right this second, but I appreciate the diligence, though, I must say.
You can send it to me on Facebook.
On Facebook, yeah.
We've been friends for years.
That's true, that's true.
You gotta go. Are you bringing the brownies? Okay.
He was eating a brownie, wasn't he? Wasn't he the one? Oh, no, you're eating a brownie. Oh.
It was a muffin. Because if it's here, it's healthy.
It was from the
Muffins are real
cafe.
healthy, I've heard.
They're here.
There you go.
They're healthy.
Another reason I really like warming up the hips, especially with that Cossack squat, or even just like lateral lunges, which would be a little bit more of a dynamic move there. I really think, especially with the rear hip, this is also true for golf, of course, it's true with any sort of swinging. Your rear hip is really supposed to act a little bit like a slingshot. You load it, and then you release it forward, or you release it to the side. And I think a lot of us, it takes a really long time for hips to get warm enough to be able to use the kind of the stretching properties of using it like a slingshot. And sometimes these lateral lunge variations are really, really helpful in kind of priming that before you start. And how does that relate to your elbow? Well, again, it's other parts of your body that are really, really integral in the swing, taking the stress and using and delivering the stress into the paddle that are not your elbow, right? The more tissues that we can get involved in this swing, the better things will be. Yeah. Does that make sense to everyone?
Yeah, a question though.
Yeah, what's up?
Cossack squat, and then you said you could also do some lunges.
Yeah.
Side lunges. What's the difference exactly? Like, I view those as pretty similar.
It's the step out. It's the step out is all that it is. So,
Oh, I
so if I do a lunge and I
Cossack
take a
is not
step out,
stepping.
a Cossack is just feet are planted.
Gotcha. Okay, yeah.
A little bit, Cossack squats seem to be a little bit more, stretchy.
Yeah.
Like you can kind of linger down in there for a little
Lunges,
longer.
boom,
Where a lunge, yeah. And
Yeah.
people with knee issues, sometimes their knees, patellar tendons, patellofemoral joints in the front, sometimes just don't tolerate stepping and lunging stress as well. Not that that's a bad thing. Again, like that's a whole other conversation, though. That's a whole other conversation outside of this. Thank you. Perfect. All right. So, we talked about a lot. I think one of the most important. Where are the brownies?
No, I had to go to little boy.
Oh, okay. All right.
You don't want the brownies for that.
No, I do not.
They're not healthy, that's only sugar.
Only sugar. Yeah. I really, I think the most important piece that I want you guys to take away from today is the fact that pickleball elbow is not a flexibility issue, it's a strength issue. That you can't just stretch it away, that you have to work on all the movement patterns that this sport offers, from dialing in what type of grip is ideal for you to picking the right paddle too, right?
Yeah, Yola. Generation 4. Generation 4, not any elbow issues. I've been told.
You've been told,
It
yeah.
actually is designed to reduce vibration because it has a foam insert at the top of the handle.
Oh, they have foam.
So, yeah.
I
No,
found this.
I mean, talking serious business, right? So, any paddle, they have more, with the latest paddle, you have more technology. All this is being developed for absorbing the shock of the.
Exactly. And I found the difference between the Jola and
The
that
Bello?
paddle. Yeah, there was a difference in how much
Yeah.
vibration went through. It's amazing.
Sure thing. Sure thing.
So the newer ones do have that technology.
Yeah, the investment is worth it a lot of times. And
You're killing your own business when you say that. You realize that. You're telling them to invest in a paddle rather
That's
than
right.
invest
Well,
in a
one more.
I'm fully aware. I'm fully aware. I have no scarcity mindset at all about this. There's plenty of people that need my help.
So what about after?
What about after
Are
what?
you ready to talk about that?
After what?
After you play.
What about after? Sorry, what's the question?
So you go home,
Mm-hmm.
ice your elbow, do you?
Like after you play and it's irritated?
Yeah.
Is that the scenario you're outlining?
I was gonna ask too, like,
Yeah.
hot tub good, the cold tub, are those?
So there's
Ibuprofen.
there's a couple of things. Number one is ibuprofen is. Let me rewind just a brief moment here. Many years ago, not that many years ago, but like the 90s or so, this whole acronym came out, RICE, Rest, Ice, Compression, Elevation. You've heard that before? And that refers to acute injury, like if you sprain an ankle, if you develop tendonitis all of a sudden. And the medical doctor that developed that has completely revamped that about 12 years ago, I want to say, 11 or 12 years ago, with the new evidence that came out, essentially that talked about how ibuprofen is not appropriate after 72 hours because it stunts your body's ability to revamp circulation, which is a concept we were talking about earlier. It stunts some of the cellular processes that happen internally in a tendon that are supposed to be happening as your body is trying to repair tendon cells. And so there's a lot of changes that have happened, and so I want to preface what I'm about to say with it's not just rest it, it's not stop doing pickleball for months on end. Icing, it's not just ice it or like wrap it up or just stick one of the braces on. There's the strengthening piece is arguably one of the most important pieces of the new guidelines, and that's kind of what my talk is born in, is what the research is kind of telling us about how to manage these things these days. I recognize though that like it feels pretty helpless to have a really sharp pain and have a lot of aching when you're on your way home from an injury in particular. The best thing I could tell you would be avoid stretching. And if you need some relief, opt in more for like soft tissue management. So massaging it, self-massage is really, really good. Getting a lacrosse ball or a tennis ball and actually kind of grinding it along some of the tissue on the outside, like a percussion massage or gun. Yeah, those things are excellent until you hit your lateral epicondyle, and then it feels horrible, right? So focusing on the actual elastic parts of the forearm, which is the tendons and the muscles, there's a pretty good return on investment there for just feeding pressure into that. And that's a lot different of a stimulus than feeding a tense stress like this. Again, going back to thinking about the frayed rope analogy, like this right here is just tugging on all of it, whereas this right here might actually reduce some of the surrounding tension of muscles that are guarding around there. You might actually wake up some of the blood flow in that area. You might flush some of the gunk that's stored in there out. And so pressure and self-massage is always going to be preferred over top of stretching in this instance.
What about wearing, how do those bands help?
No, no, I'm just joking. I'm just yeah, right. It really does help a lot, but it's, what's that?
No, I try not to take it off. You just need it only when you play.
Yeah, need it when you play.
Because you need the
Circulation.
Yeah.
What is the mechanism that makes that work?
It changes the, oh man, it's complicated, but I'll do my best here. Can I use your elbow for a moment?
Sure.
The way, when there's no compression, yeah, crank on it. When there's no band or no pressure on the area that had it there, his body, his brain in particular, operates with the full length of this muscle unit. So from the lateral epicondyle to the very ends of his fingertips. That's how long the extensor tendons go, okay? And so, unfortunately, if there's inflammation up here, a trick that some orthopedic surgeon, I think, found out, I don't know how many years ago that this thing was devised.
What's his name, Mueller?
Yeah, maybe.
They call him Mueller.
Yeah, it might be, it might be.
Okay.
If you add compression down here, you effectively change the way that your body interacts with the origin of the tendon. So if I put pressure here, all of the extension and all of that motion is technically kind of anchored into that spot rather than anchored into the bone. So it's a little bit of a trick. Like obviously you're not actually moving the tendon attachments. What's that?
Does it make it more inflamed then?
Does,
If you don't have that band on?
right, right. So the bands are a helpful device to utilize.
Are you supposed to put it below your elbow? Or
Below your elbow.
Yeah,
So like pinpoint.
So it's kind of isolating the inflamed part of the tendon.
It does. It pushes it to the side. You're absolutely right. It isolates it.
It just helps it
It reduces the
become
shock.
less
It
anchored.
reduces
Like, it doesn't
Becomes
help
less.
I was
rehab
wondering
it,
how
but
it
it just
worked.
helps.
I know it works.
Yeah.
I just never knew.
So, and that's the big important piece of this is that straps and sleeves and ibuprofen and one trick that some people like a lot if you just injured it is like an ice massage, like getting a huge ice cube and just grinding on that thing there. That makes it feel nice temporarily. All of these things, there's a million things that actually make it feel better. But what you guys need to be focused on is how to actually repair the tendon. That's, I guess, the main concept I'm trying to feed you is the stuff that actually repairs tissue is in the way that you move, how much you choose to piss it off and stress it throughout the week, the amount of rehab and work and strength stuff that you're putting in, even granular all the way down to how the foods that we eat and are we getting enough protein for our body to repair. There's a lot behind this stuff, and I want you guys to make sure there's a lot of helpful things like that, and even the warm-up I think is really nice, but if you have an active problem like this, you need to do the actual hard work of building back some of the tissue. That's one of the most important pieces behind this whole thing. Can I talk about you momentarily? That'd be all right? Sure. Like with the dry needling stuff? Yeah. So, yeah. So a really common treatment that people come and see us for is something called dry needling. So it's actually an acupuncture needle that goes right into the tendons and right into the muscles around the tendons. And it's kind of like it's shock therapy to some degree. Your muscles twitch and your fingers go nuts, and that is that's kind of classified these days with right alongside, kind of underneath, but right alongside PRP and stem cell as a treatment that helps to spark your body's own regenerative response. Because you're boosting blood flow to the area in a really, really significant way. So even that, like we do a lot of things. Like my company's name is Limitless. We do a lot of things for this, from doing some of the soft tissue work ourselves to doing dry needling treatments, and it helps a ton with pain. Like we've had some people come through that is totally transformed and flipped around their journey with tennis elbow, with all different types of tendinopathy. But if you've ever been a patient of mine, you're always going to get the lecture though that's part of the work. That's not the whole thing. The majority of the hard work comes from rebuilding, dialing in your movement patterns, and letting it actually heal. I'm not in the business of telling people to stop doing what they love. I'm hooked on just as many other things, pickleball and CrossFit and all these fun things that I enjoy doing with my wife and my friends, but I don't see as much of a place for rest as a lot of people do in this scenario. That might sound a little bit shocking. What's that? Well, I think I simply just
I do want to
yeah.
circle about
Go ahead.
that because I mean he does the dry needling, so I was stuck by, so I get to him. I have a really, really bad tennis elbow like 3 years ago or so.
Yeah.
I couldn't even
Yeah.
hold a cup. Okay, I couldn't drink it. At that time, I was playing tennis and pickleball when I was doing my transition.
That's right.
Okay? So I did 2 months of physical therapy. I'm not denying that it won't work, but in my case, specifically in my case, I wasted my 2 months on recovery, I will say. At that time, I just started coaching, so I couldn't stop playing because I needed this is my tool to work, right?
Right.
Physical therapy, they have a different approach, not him. And that place that I went, so they wanted you, if you go to a regular physical therapist, so they're gonna recommend you to stop doing because that's what they do. I'm not saying it won't work. In my case, it didn't work because I was still using it. So someone recommended him to do the dry needling. Okay. Some insurance cover. Some don't. So you have to take your insurance. In my case, it worked with him, so I was super happy. But don't think like it also dry needling works.
It really does. Yeah.
It really does, but it's not gonna work with one treatment. All right.
Yep.
So I did it 6 weeks, once every week, right?
Yep.
The first 2 weeks, I think I wasn't allowed to do any strength until the inflammation went down, right? But as he said, it's a combination with everything, right? So it was the treatment of that. I changed my diet at that time, so kind of I wasn't vegan, but I was more a vegetarian, like a fake vegan, I would say. but that helps.
No
with-
chocolate either, right?
Chocolate comes from the plant.
That's right.
But you gotta be patient. So the recovery process. So I was like at 90% when I was able to play finally without some kind of pain. During, no after, right? So during executing the shot, right? 100% recovery. It takes a little bit longer. So don't
right.
expect like right now it's gonna fix it right up. It's gonna help you. Then after 2-3 weeks, you have to do the strength. Right, and there's other stuff that you have to be 1, 2, 3. It's a combo. It's not
That's
just
right.
one thing.
I would even just add, like, the whole rest conversation is really interesting because, again, when we look at, like, what is tendinopathy, what is tennis elbow, what is lateral epicondylitis, if it's a damaged tendon that is weak and that is not able to handle stress, what rest does with that is it takes away the physical thing that was irritating it and does nothing else. So there's a lot of people, and this is not just pickleball, this is my runners, this is my weightlifters, people that have been told by other healthcare professionals, hey, I need you to take ibuprofen, X milligrams a day and just rest for 6 weeks and stay home. The detriment of that is far worse, in my opinion, in my experience here, because what we have is now you've removed your social circle. You're not having fun anymore. You're kind of depressed if you're really honest with yourself. You're sitting at home watching other people on YouTube play pickleball, right? And that's not a great situation to be in. And you're not exercising. And all the while, that tendon has been allowed to just, yes, it's not irritated. It's maybe not as inflamed because you're not smacking the heck out of a ball. But all the while, that tendon has been allowed to get weaker and weaker and weaker. And that is the opposite of what you want.
If you've got something active, start low weight strength, whatever you told us about the strength.
That's right. Active recovery always wins. Always wins. Yeah. And that it doesn't have to be going doing biceps curls, but.
So I think I start with 2 pounds, then you move to 3, then
Yeah.
to 5, to 8.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. For sure.
So it's just don't. So you use. Oh, it doesn't hurt. Oh, this
Don't
is
go to
5.
10, yeah.
Right. So 1 week to 2, then the next week to 5 or 3.
That's right.
Slowly. But if it hurts,
Yeah, then stop.
then stop.
For sure.
Now, if you're coming and playing a league, open play, and you're executing the shot and it hurts, I will say stop right there because you don't want to aggravate it. Let's see, if you play 2 hours, maybe 1 hour every day, right?
Sure thing.
Or play, stop, play, rest, play, rest. If you want not to stop, right? But before you play left hand, strength this one.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Did you end up getting tennis elbow in your left hand too?
Yes. But it was 2 years after, but
Good morning.
Man, well, hey, I think that's probably all I have for you guys. We've talked about a lot of different things. Hopefully that was valuable for you.
Thank you. I was stretching, I was flexing it, and that's the
Yeah.
thing to do.
Yeah,
That's one first takeaway.
fair enough.
Yeah.
I'll take that as a win that you were able to kind of absorb that. As far as Limitless and what we do, I mean, I kind of already told you guys a little bit about us in the beginning, but you guys missed it a little bit. We're in Rochester Hills. We're actually right across from from Lifetime Rochester.
Are you in the new building where the Starbucks is?
No, the other side. So like the driveway out, if you go right behind Dick's Sporting Goods, Home Depot back in there.
Yep.
Used to be a movie theater back there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we have a bunch of space back in there.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a long time ago. It's been renovated. There's a CrossFit gym, a chiropractor, a PT clinic, lots of stuff. Applied fitness solutions. Yeah.
Before that.
Yeah.
The dog used to do softball.
Yeah.
Training there.
Yeah.
The front
Oh,
of
that's
the
a great spot
building.
though, yeah. Like,
It's awesome.
Across a
It's great. It's great. We've got it's 30-foot ceiling, so like the majority of this place used to be. It's just an industrial gym is kind of what it's like
Yeah.
right now,
You have
and
a pickleball court in there.
we do not have a pickleball court.
You have a 30-foot ceiling and no pickleball court.
Correct.
30 is not enough.
I have a pickleball court across the street. I don't know what you mean.
You have 11.
Yeah, that's a lot of them. It's true. It's
I do
true.
have a question with like recovery, with like
Yeah.
instead of like foam rolling and like you mentioned like the massaging
Yeah.
like stuff like that. What about like cupping or like rock floss? Where would that kind of go with it?
I mean, I would throw all of that into the active recovery category and say that's a green light for sure. It's like
Cupping or rock floss?
so rock floss. It's generally called compression tacking. It's elastic banding. You wrap it really really tightly around tissue. You move your wrist up and down.
Kind of like the Normatec.
Well, but it's meant to be really really insanely tight. The concept that operates under is something called reperfusion, which is the exact thing that we were talking about earlier, which is flush out all the stuff that's in there, and then when you remove the compression, it allows new fresh blood flow to come in, which is how the regenerative process works with tendons to begin with. So that cupping is also something that works really well.
Like I was doing on this.
I'm a big fan of that, yeah. Taping,
You use tape.
I don't use tape very often. Literature just doesn't support it very well, and I use it for ankles and knees every once in a while because it
But
feels
you know,
nice.
It works.
Taping?
Yeah, the K tape.
Yeah.
The
KT
KT does.
tape.
Well,
Right
they take
along
one
this
for me.
tendon.
Oh, I've done everything.
I have a limited amount of good results with taping in my experience, but that's,
I feel
yeah.
like that's kind of how.
Scraping, yeah, Graston technique. I love that. The interesting thing, again, poor salesman here. I like offering value though, so you tell me what actually matters here, right? Scraping and cupping used to be really gatekept by like healthcare professionals like our profession. Like, oh, you have to have a physical therapist or a chiropractor do that. You can buy those things on your own and learn. Yeah, 100%. So I mean, it's very, very helpful to flush the area out. You know, we're blood flow being kind of the operative thing we're going after. Yeah. Yeah.
Very good.
What other questions you guys have?
And before you go, oh shoot, do we have a picture?
Yeah, of course. Of
Yeah.
course.
Really helpful.
Of course.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
That was great.
Appreciate you guys' attention. Other than Bob. Bob gets to demerit.